I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Golddigger, here with Oscar-nominated Three-Body Problem director Derek Tsang. Derek, you're one of a number of directors who brought this show to life with Benioff, Weiss, and Wu, but you've taken on the first two episodes. I'm curious as to what was the most exciting or perhaps even terrifying aspect of the expansive world building and setting the tone for the whole show that you really had to take on.
Mhm. Hi, everyone. Well, I think I first of all, I think the biggest pressure for me is bringing this novel to life, because I don't think a lot of the Western audience appreciate how big, how revered this novel is in Chinese uh, uh, literature scene, and just to Chinese reader in general, because this novel came out in 2008. I think the first book came out in 2008, and it eventually became one of the biggest sci-fi um, book ever in Chinese culture. And they like fans of the book even have like this 0 year for Chinese sci-fi, as to like 2008 being like year zero, because it really did kick started the whole sci-fi literary movement in China, eventually giving start to a lot of really good Chinese sci-fi writer coming out because of that. So it's revered, and it's on a pedestal, and so it's just one of those things that where you feel the pressure of bringing it to life. So but of course, I think it's an honor for me to do so, and I've always been a huge fan of the book and of the writer, Cixin Liu, and also of David and Dan, because from Game of Thrones. So right from the start, just the combination of working with David and Dan and adapting this novel is a huge honor and pressure for me. So I think the biggest thing for me right from the start is it's really how to be authentic, and be truthful to the book. And I think a lot of credit has to go to David and Dan and Alex, our another showrunner of ours, that they really wanted to be authentic. That's why they reached out and looked for a Chinese director to come on board for the first block for episode 1 and 2, because it's really about bringing especially Yu Wenjie's backstory, and just to be as authentic as we could, in that sense, to make sure that we get all the historical details and everything right. And I mean, in terms of setting the tone, I think I didn't really look at it that as that. I didn't give myself too much pressure on that, because I know it's a collaborative process. It's not just me so-called setting the tone. It's also about collaborating with David and Dan and with the other directors in what we think is best for the show, what kind of style we would approach it in. And I think it's in that sense is a very collaborative process. And for me, it's a because I come from a feature film background, so it's a very interesting process, because I've never been on a huge American show like this, where I have to work hands in hand with the different directors in to set the tone, to determine a right style for the show. So it was a very interesting, very for me, a huge learning process, and it was very exciting.
I don't think it's very hard to overstate how Xixin Liu's novels, how important they are to not
Mhm.
only to Chinese literary culture, but sci-fi nerds like me, who always assumed they're never going to be able to make really in the West, in
Mhm.
America or England, a show or a movie about this. It's too hard. The fact that it's been done and it's so good and it's so beloved now and popular and the critics love it. I'm wondering, you've been on this, you've been talking about Three Body Problem for years now. You worked on it for such
Mhm.
a long time. How do you feel about now that the world has seen it and seems to be really
Mhm.
resonating about it?
I'm just really happy that I'm part of the team that brought this to a wider audience. I think it, like you said, I mean, this is a book that I think needs to be read by everyone, because it really changes your perspective on a lot of things. We were back in South by Southwest. We were doing an interview with David and Dan, and I think they put it very accurately. It's like after you read the book, it changes the way you look at things. And even now, like at night when you walk out into the street, when you look at the stars and the moon, it changes the way you look at it. So it's really that powerful. And so it's I'm just very honored to be a part of the team that brought this to a wider audience. And I think it's I'm just very honored and very happy that this series is doing so well, and everybody's genuinely so interested and so captivated by it. And I walk down the street and there are people, literally strangers, just stopping by and just telling me, "Oh my God, wonderful job on the show!" And it feels great because it's like I said, I think it's one of those things that needs to be read or be seen, and there's so many ideas in the book that are so worthwhile to discuss. Different between people.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive. A lot of the
Hmm.
pilot that you directed, called The Countdown, takes place during 1960s China during the Cultural Revolution, where a young
Hmm.
Wen Jie and he witnesses her father's brutal death. And those scenes are so vivid and so riveting. And to me, they felt very authentic from
Hmm.
from my limited knowledge of that part of
Hmm.
Chinese history. So, did you feel the pressure early on to make sure that that was going to be such an impactful part of the
Hmm.
episode?
Yes, of course. I mean, that was one of the biggest responsibility, and because of the historical significance of that era in Chinese history. So I that was the pressure was huge for me because I didn't live through that era. So, but I grew up listening to a lot of stories from people that went through that, just the stories that accumulate as you grow up when you hear listening to that. So it was a huge pressure for me, as a Chinese filmmaker, to get that right. So and because we shot everything in London, and it was during the height of COVID, so there was a lot of limitation as to what we could do. Going to China to shoot this was never an option for us because it was during the height of COVID. So we really had to rely on a lot of references on what we can kind of just recreate or mimic to that era. So a lot of credit has to go to Deborah, our production designer. I think she was fabulous. She was amazing, and she genuinely she felt she was really on my side. Like she's like, Derek, whatever you want to do, we have to get this right because I believe in authenticity. We want to get this right. So the whole art department, production design team was amazing. Like we really sat down with huge, like a torrent amount of references that we went through, combing through historical references, and there are a lot of really nuanced detail as to like the slogan that you see on stage. Like, is that period appropriate? Because there are different stages through that whole cultural revolution. So there are certain phrases that came out, during the early on in cultural revolutions that does. So we have to get those little details right. And I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it. But I did. It wasn't like I was very relieved. I was very nervous. Even after it was aired, after it was out. But I think the moment for me that was a moment of relief is when I saw a couple of people that I know have went through that period, and they personally came up to me and said, you guys nailed it. You guys,
Wow.
it's very accurate. This is how it was. So that I was just like, oh my God, this huge pressure just got lifted off my shoulders. So yeah, I'm just like I'm very proud of what we did, and it's a team effort. Everybody really gave their best to really be as authentic as accurate as we could.
I think the pressure is twofold. Not only is it that authenticity culturally, but the stakes have to be so high for Ye Wenjie because she's the one that presses the button when the
Hmm.
Sun T tell her don't
Hmm.
respond.
Hmm.
She's the one that puts the whole of humanity at risk by this
Right, right.
threat, right? And so for
Yeah.
her to do it, there's got to be a reason why she's so
Hmm.
bewildered by humanity. And so when you're working with Xin Zhang on the on those scenes as the young
Hmm.
Ye, um, what were the discussions had on set about what she was going through on that very pivotal moment when she presses the button?
Hmm. Well, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, because I think that's like the earliest conversation I remember having with David and Dan is about, getting Ye's arc right in a way that we can get the audience to sympathize with her, empathize with her, so that when she pressed a button, you wouldn't feel like she's a villain. Like you would side with her when she does it. So I think from the get go, like I know Ye Wenjie's time like story arc. It's probably my primary responsibility. So casting the right actor for this role has always been this huge challenge for us, because we really did like a casting, international casting worldwide. We had our huge, really talented casting director Nina, who's from Game of Thrones, and she's really famous, popular. She does an amazing job. But we also hired an Chinese casting director from China that I've worked with for a long time, and he's a close friend of mine. He's an amazing casting director, and he really helped us out a lot as well, and to finding the right actor for Ye. And to be absolutely honest, like we were actually going really into, we were getting quite desperate, and because we couldn't find someone that we felt like us just spot out right on, like that we all agreed was the right person, and it was really getting into the deadline for finding the right actor for Ye. And we started, it was like, what, let's just reach out to even students that are still in acting school, see whether we can get lucky and find someone that's right. And that's actually how we found with Xin. She was still in acting school. She didn't even know what project it was. She just got the script, like, oh, do like a cold reading of this role. And that's really how we found Xin. And it's just one of those things where you felt like, when your hearts are all into it, it comes together. And I think that right from the start, what I told Xin is that, you're the pivotal character of this show. This is really the person that kick-started all the events in the story. And it came from such a pivotal and critical moment of Chinese history. You really need to read up on this part of our history, and watch a lot of the films that have been made about this part of our history, because during the 80s and 90s there were a lot of really fabulous Chinese film that has been made about this period of our time. So I really pushed her. I'm like, you need to go through those references, you need to see those films. And she did, and we had like this really long conversation on and off about Ye Wenjie, that even when we're not shooting, we're having, we're just hanging out, having dinner. We would go through what Ye's going through, like, the different, like her subtle changes throughout her journey. And, and she was just really into it. And she, a lot of times she would be like, oh, is it like this? And she would jump off the table and start rehearsing the scene. So she, it was a long process of really just telling her and reminding her what Ye's journey is, how she acts slightly differently in every different point in her story arc. And I think in the end we're all just very fortunate that we found her. And I think her performance now really shows that we've found the right person, and everybody's so blown by her for her performance.
It's just mind-boggling to me that you and the team could have settled on another actor and it might not have really worked out. The risk is that you just keep searching until you find.
Mm-hmm.
That is huge, because the stakes are so high. So that's a really fascinating story. I didn't know that. There's something else that happened with this show that really piqued my interest. It's so simple, but it's that countdown that Oggy
Mm-hmm.
sees, and that we first see the amazing Benedict Wong as Da Shi, the police investigator who is investigating what's going on with these scientists. If that countdown looks dumb, I'm out. But it was so compelling to me. I was desperate to figure out what the hell it was. We find out by episode 5. So was that difficult to get right?
Yes, I think we went through so many different versions of it, that it was ongoing as we were in the pre-production stage. The designer came out different prototype of how it should look like. as we were shooting, there were other designs that was going on, and even like in post production, there was so many different version of it, and I think that just speaks to how picky we were in terms of picking out the right version that we felt like closest to what we envisioned or what we imagined to be. And it was one of those ongoing discussions that never felt like it's never ending, to be
Yeah.
honest. But it's just one of those things where you have to constantly try out different versions to get to the point where you feel like, okay, this is very close, or this is exactly what we want.
I was also thinking, you know, Cixin Liu's novels are very heavy on concept, perhaps maybe light on
Mhm,
character. So Benioff, Weiss, and Wu wanted to flip that script, literally, and make it more heavy on character.
mhm,
Then they decide, and also there's a Chinese element. So then they decide, okay, we're going to hire Derek Sam, who is a well-known Hong Kong native, Oscar nominated, but your background really, as you've alluded to, is in art house cinema. So it makes sense to me that they would bring someone like you on to really focus on the character. I'm curious then, when you've got the job of introducing the Oxford Five, Da Shi,
mhm.
um, what were the discussions that you were having with Benioff, Weiss, and Wu about making sure that the characters were just as important as the Cultural Revolution and everything
Mhm.
else that we've seen?
Well, I think because characters are so important to David, Dan, and Alex that it was really all we talked about. I don't think they were very concerned about, to their credit, I mean, they weren't really concerned about me, whether I'm capable of doing a lot of sci-fi, whether I'm able to, to execute this game scenes stuff. They weren't really concerned about that, and all we ever discussed was about getting the characters right, getting the nuance of all these different characters right. How do we introduce the Oxford Five? I think that was, I think it comes from because as fabulous writer as themselves, that's all they're concerned about, whether we get these characters right. And I think that's, it's really to their credit that they've created very relatable and likable characters that out of Three Body Problem, because as you said, it's a book that is very heavy on concept and science, and to be able to create characters that are so relatable out of all these sci-fi, very hard, heavy sci-fi element. It's a lot of work, and I think they really pulled it through, and that's really all we were concerned about.
Yeah, they told me, I mean, Alexander said it most succinctly when he said, if we don't care about these characters, we're
Mhm.
just not going to care about what's going on. And it's so true.
Exactly.
So,
Uh-huh.
so true. My final question is not three body problem related. I
Mhm.
have to ask because we are awards nerds, but Better Days was obviously nominated for an Academy Award for Best International Feature at the 93rd Academy Awards. It became Hong Kong's first Oscar submission, directed by a Hong Kong native, to be nominated. It's a huge achievement. Can you talk me through what was going through your mind that night? Obviously, you didn't take home the statuette, but it's still such a huge achievement for you.
Mhm. Well, I mean, to be honest, we never thought that the film can bring us so far. It was one of those things that even when we were shortlisted, I was already over the moon,
Yeah.
and I already felt like I've won the award, to be honest. So when we really got into the final nomination, I was just really grateful. I mean, there's really no other words to put it. Like I didn't really, I didn't really look at it as, oh, I'm the first Hong Kong director to be, to be representing Hong Kong. I was just so grateful that our film really traveled that far and are appreciated by audience from all across the world. And I think it really speaks to how serious the issue of bullying is. I think it's it's the same as across different culture, even though there are slight cultural differences. But this is something that is just part of our nature. It's just something that are innate in us. So in that sense, I just really it's like a whole journey, full cycle of this journey where it brought me back to day one. How me and my producer we really wanted to make this film. It's because we really want to tackle this issue of bullying, and we really wanted to talk about this from an angle of someone that has been bullied and are going through that journey. And once when we were nominated in the Oscars, we were just felt like we really found the right issue to talk about. That's why it resonated with so many different people.
Yeah, it absolutely does such a great film. And you make a film and you want it to be good and you want people to love it and see it, but for it to go all the way to the Academy Awards, mate, you will always be known now as Oscar-nominated director Derek Zhang. On that note,
Thank you,
I
thank you,
hope it'll also be Emmy nominated as well. Congrats on some great work and thank
thank
you
you
for
so
your time.
much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert.